Yeah, 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 yeah. Baby, what you doing? Got me going crazy, how you making me feel? Baby, what's your secret? I promise if you kiss, girl, I won't tell. So tell me what's up. Baby, can we take our time and get it right? Hello and welcome to Conversations with Reverend G. I am Reverend Grenetta Mason, aka Reverend G, and I'm here every Monday night on WEMS Radio, bringing you spiritual conversations. Happy New Year! It's 2021, and I know we're really excited about the new year because 2020 was a year. So now I'm sure we're all looking forward to what can be new, what could be different, what can happen in 2021. And January is really, the time where people set a lot of goals and intentions and things that they want to have happen for 2021. So I'd like to invite you to think about what would you put in your spiritual toolkit for 2021. And each time I bring on different guests so we can talk about their spiritual journey, what's in their spiritual toolkit, in hopes that we can support you in building your spiritual toolkit and support you in being inspired to live your best life with grace and ease. And that's my motto, living in joy with grace and ease. One of the things that's really important for 2021 is for us to heal. And we need to heal in a lot of different areas in our lives. And as you know, I bring on different guests and we talk about different topics. And tonight I have a very, very special guest, Liz Moyer Ben Forhat. Liz is the founder of We Heal for All. And we're going to have her talk about what that is. And we're going to talk about Liz's spiritual journey and the different practices that she has in her spiritual toolkit. And I'm here every Monday night, but you can also find me on Facebook as Reverend Grenetta Mason, on Instagram as Rev Grenetta, and also on YouTube as Reverend Grenetta Mason. So tonight, let's welcome Liz in for spiritual conversations. Hello, Liz.
Hey, Grenetta, it's so good to be here.
Yes, I'm excited about having you on the show tonight. Yeah. So, let's see, I have so many different ways and so many questions I wanted to start with, right? So let's start here. I talked about We Heal for All, right? Mm-hmm. Give us the concept behind that and how you came up with what it is and what you would like to share with the world through the format of We Heal for All.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It's really good to be here. And I just so love how you started things off by talking about just the newness of the new year. And 2020 was quite a year. Mm-hmm. And, it's funny. I've had several people say to me that my work makes more sense since 2020 happened. Mm-hmm. Because the work that I do, and there's so much to share. There's so much to share about it, and I'm excited to get into it all with you. But like, the work that I do is really around creating supportive community space and offering tools for people to help with the often challenge. Well, actually, I'll even frame it a little bit differently. It's really to support the internal world for those of us who are showing up for big outer world challenges.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot going on in the world, a lot that we are all a lot of us are waking up to around social issues, around environmental issues. And with that can come a lot of overwhelm, anxiety, grief, strife. Mm-hmm. And, the work that I seek to do is to support that, is to be a place and a space for people to come together, to that can serve as a refuge of sorts for those feelings, for that deeper process that often comes with actively trying to be of service to this world, to this very complex world full of suffering, full of hardship, in order to give birth to the deeper wisdom that is possible within it all, give birth to new insights, new perspectives. So I think I'll just leave it at that for right now, because I know we're going to get into so much.
I thought about how we met with the Emerging Leaders group, and we really talked about forming a community, right, where we can all come together and share. And you took off from that and created a healing community. I went to a couple of your healing circles, and I thought they were absolutely fabulous in the impact of how people actually needed that space. So when somebody said to you, your work is even more important now, just through the healing circles that you create, right? My experience of it was that people really needed a space to come and to talk or not talk, right? Or to just feel
That's
comfortable.
right.
And I love that you set that up. And I know you do different types of circles. Can you talk about your healing circles?
For sure, for sure. So these circles are community space, open community space that has some light structure to it, that uses meditation and storytelling to hold space for ourselves, for each other, and for whatever collective topic we're coming together around. So I've started off doing these on the climate crisis and climate injustice. And then once the pandemic hit, started moving into holding space and holding these healing circles for the pandemic. And then also with the racial reckoning going on in our country right now, and just the aliveness of that conversation, holding space for racism as well. And, you know, these spaces, I've found, because I've been in the social change, social impact world for my whole adult life, and I've noticed that, you know, there's a lot of opportunities to come together in community, to learn and to educate ourselves, to organize and strategize and take action. And those are awesome. You know, like those are so very, very much needed. And I noticed that there was a lack of space for people to come together and really talk openly, share openly about that more emotional side of things, the psychological side of things, the spiritual side of things, right? Our moral grapplings with these big topics. And so, yeah, so that's really where it came from. You know, I myself am a feeler. You know, I'm a feeler, and so my own connection to global and cultural issues really is on this felt level. I was actually going down a psychology route, and it was the first time that I really learned about extreme poverty in sub-Saharan Africa, that I just felt this overwhelm of feelings. You know, I was like, oh my gosh. And I thought to myself, I was like, if I can channel this in the right way, you know, if I can take that energy and channel it in the right way, then I think I could be of service. You know, I think I could make a difference, you know. So it's cool to kind of come back around to that now and be offering these circles.
Interesting. It goes together because I know you were trained in sociology. You did public administration, right? And so I could see how all that can come together to support you in the different types of circles and the different type of work that you're doing now. Can you talk about your spiritual journey, from like, were you raised Catholic? What are you now? You know,
totally, yeah.
Through that journey of, you know, I was born and raised a Catholic, and now, you know.
Well, how many hours do we have? You know. No, yeah, I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to, and I appreciate the question too. You know, I grew up in a family that wasn't particularly religious. My mom's side of the family, devout Catholics. My dad's side of the family, more secular. And you know, but I did grow up in a family that a lot of love, a lot of passion, a lot of creativity, and also a lot of strife. You know, a lot of challenges, a lot of violence in my household growing up. You know, addiction, abuse, which is, you know, something that a lot of families can relate to and experience, you know. And, you know, I feel very, very grateful to be alive at this day and age when there's so much more of a consciousness and so much more, so many more conversations and access to tools to really understand mental health, to really understand addiction, to really understand these intergenerational cycles of abuse, you know, that often get passed down just, you know, generation after generation. And just being a feeler, you know, being someone who's always been very naturally sensitive. And I think sensitive gets like a bad in our society, you know what I mean? It's considered to be like weak or soft. But you know, I really think about sensitivity as just being able to sense things, right? It's like extra sensory type of a thing. So I was very attuned to what was going on in my household growing up. I was very attuned to my family's pain, and you know, as such, kind of you know, of course there's always choice in life, but like my own demons and my own pain was kind of like right up in my face growing up, right? Like, especially as I started to get into like my young adult years, and you know, it was essentially like this pain was kind of like, all right, either dance or get eaten. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna lace up my shoes and get to dancing real quick.
Exactly, right.
So, you know, and that's actually was the start of my spiritual journey too. You know, it was, and you know, it's all very tied and interconnected, as like the beauty of life is. You know, my first real trip abroad was to Tanzania in East Africa. And granted, when I say that this experience kind of took everything that I knew and flipped it on its head and turned it back around again, I really mean it just like hip checked some really cool things into place for me. And one of them was, you know, at the ripe age of 20, you know, of identifying what that part within me of spirit was.
Okay.
I remember being there and having this experience and like hearing the word spirit, because I went to a Jesuit university, a Jesuit. Are you familiar with the Jesuits? Yeah, they're like a liberal sect of Catholicism, you know, so they're very like, so there was a lot of that all throughout my college years, you know what I mean? A lot of that like reflection on spirituality, like invitation to reflect on spirituality, all that good stuff. And I remember just being like, having a block with it and being like, I don't know what these people are talking about. And it was on that trip that I was like, wow. I was like, you know, and it was to my experiences as a young kid too, of being like, there's no reason why I should have gotten through that the way I had if it wasn't for spirit.
You recognize that afterwards, right? And as you were going through it, do you have any memories of like praying or using any spiritual tools throughout all of that?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, as a young kid, as a real young kid, that's a good question. I mean, I think for me, I've, and this sometimes sounds kind of a little out there for some folks, but really just feeling connected to source through spirit guides, through just that kind of like, yeah,
No,
like,
yeah.
yeah, just that knowing, when I was real young, I had imaginary friends that were
Mhm.
very, very real and alive for me. That just served as a companionship type of a thing.
Mhm.
And I think, like, again, just get, one of the ways that I got through the hardships was really through socializing, was through partying, was through like kind of
Mhm.
was risk taking. I'm kind of a risk taker in general,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
look back and I'm like, I don't know how I got through those things in the way that I did. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I have different ideas, but I really ultimately feel and believe that there was a deeper guidance going on, amongst other things. But
Yeah,
but it really, yeah. Go ahead.
what it reminded me of, and then I'll let you go on, was when you said spirit guides. Something clicked for me thinking about as a young kid with imaginary friends. I had imaginary protectors.
Mm,
And those protectors were my spirit guides. That was, and I think about it now. Back then, I thought, I don't know how I thought about it, right? As it was coming.
totally.
These were my imaginary friends and my imaginary protectors. I actually had people I would call on to
Mm,
protect me. And that was just very young. So, spirit is always there from always, right? And I think each one of us recognizes it in different ways at different times in our lives. So you just triggered that thought for me in
mm,
thinking about my imaginary friends and protectors. It's quite interesting when we look back as we move forward.
totally. Totally. Yeah, it's so true. And yeah. Yeah, I so relate to that and dig that what you're saying of just like how different points spirit shows itself in different ways,
Exactly. That,
you
yeah,
know,
in
and
different ways.
even, yeah, in, even thinking about uh, spiritual tools, which I love that. I love that you're bringing in just that practicality. I think back to just how different spiritual tools resonated with me and were of service to me at different points in time,
Mhm.
just depending on where I was at and what I was going through. And
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's how I talk about when with the spiritual toolkit, you can have so many things in there, and at different periods, different things, work better, or I go through periods where I meditate all the time, and then I might stop for a minute, but I'm not disconnected, but I'm not as consistent. But then I can just get right back into it, right? So there are other things. I love singing gospel music, but I don't always do it. But then I can jump into it at moments, right, when I need to
right.
find that space. One of the things I heard you mention earlier was about all the intergenerational
Mm.
things that we have to deal with. Have you studied that, or do you work with I know you do one-on-one coaching and all of that. Do you work from that perspective?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Very much personally. And then also in terms of the way that I think about the collective. And I think these circle spaces too is
Mhm.
really an opportunity to create space for these collective wounds that do get passed down intergenerationally, do get passed down through our institutions and through our systemic structures, through our families, through our schools. Um, but yeah, intergenerational trauma, and it's real cool too because now science is catching up to this idea as well, and just in terms of some around genetics that are pointing to it, they're pointing to
Mhm.
the reality of of not only learned behaviors, you know, they talk about nature versus nurture type of a thing, like how do we become who we become, you know. So both on that nature social conditioning front, but then also through our or nurture social conditioning front, but then also through our bodies, you know. And we also know more and more that trauma lives in the body too, or that our nervous system is more than just the brain and the skull, but it's actually our entire, it's like the nerves throughout our entire bodies. So so totally, you know, and you know, trauma is a big word, and it's cool that it's becoming more and more out in the world, you know. And you know, what I know around trauma from my own personal lived experiences, healing trauma, healing my own complex trauma, and then also just through studying trauma, that, you know, safety is a real big part of it. You know, creating this kind of safe space of, or yeah, creating that kind of safe space or space that, like, you know, is supportive for these wounded parts of us, or for these parts that, because oftentimes what happens when something very overwhelming happens to us, and we're either too young to be able to really process it and integrate it, or we're just overwhelmed in our lives. You know, we're running around, we're working multiple jobs, we have a family, you know, so we're not really able to take the time to process it and integrate it. This trauma gets like parsed off, becomes like exiled within our own minds, within our own consciousness. And that's how, you know, those triggers kind of happen, right?
And we're
When
still
we're like,
responding to the trauma. Like, as you said, a trigger, and then the trauma is back in your face. You're responding to it, right? You know, so you like you do so many things to say you're supporting yourself or getting over the trauma, right? But a trigger can just bring it back. So it's like healing it as opposed to pushing it to the side. And because I think now the very important thing you said was, now that it's a word that people are dealing with, right? It's more out there. There's more talk about it. There are more techniques for, okay, trauma is real. How do we deal with this trauma from the past? Because we see so many people still responding from it. It's the same in the Black community. Mental health, right? It's one of the things that is really important now, you know, that I think we'll get into. That it's always been important, but more and more, it's not, there's no stigma associated with mental support or going to get help. And I'm encouraged by that, because as you create these circles and these spaces, and you see how people just need to talk, you know, how we saw that if they said it and talked about it and felt that they were in a space to release, it was very healing to just have a space to talk about where you're feeling. And I like that idea of creating the circles, giving more options for that, because not everybody can go and pay a one-on-one person to do it, or go and, but then they can come to group, you know, and find a space for your circles aren't even that expensive, right? And they are great, you know, and more of that can create this whole healing that a lot of us need around everything you said, racism, or the COVID, everything that's happening right now. Climate control. I recently said, somebody said, what do you care about? I was like, climate control, right?
yes, yeah.
But I don't even know about climate control, right? And
but you feel it, you know, you can like feel it a little bit, right? You like sense it. Yeah, that's right.
When we
that's right.
met with the emerging leaders, remember climate control was a big part of that core group. I think it was one of the things that we wanted to work on, or there were so many different aspects to what we wanted to work on. Climate control was one of them. And I think it's really important. And as for me, it's not in my world. I know it's there, but I also would be interested in how to, just the same way I'm doing with spirituality, practical terms. What does it mean? How can we support? What is it that we should be doing? You hear the things, but what's going to make it really real for everybody to get on board? Because it still seems like not everybody is participating.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's a big topic, like any of these, right? We're just like diving into all trauma, racism, climate, yeah. But no, yeah.
Topic, right? I
feel you.
What are you doing? What would you say would be some of the things you're doing right now around climate control?
Totally. I mean, well, one, I so appreciate what you were just saying there around like it not being in your world, but you like feel it, or like you sense it, the like importance of it. And I think that's so true for so many of us, whether it's somebody who's like in the climate change conversation and is just waking up to racism, or somebody who's into the healing world and now is just, learning about sex, whatever it is, it's like there's so many big topics to care about and to be like tuned into these days that I think it's just amazing. And then I also just have a lot of like love and compassion for all of us as we're like inviting in more information and more awareness, and then more like taking steps around them in our lives. But when I think about climate change, the climate crisis, climate injustice, like just essentially the way that our world currently operates in terms of our industries, in terms of the way that we use fossil fuels like oil and gas and coal to heat our houses, drive our cars, produce our goods, which we've come to learn, like the way that we, people trace it back to like the Industrial Revolution, right? Like 200 years ago when like big industry just started. And, I like to think about just how, that's helped us advance to where we are today. Like you and I are able to do this because of the advancements that we've made in technology and just like all these really things. And we're also at a point in our collective development where we're realizing that the ways that we're going about doing things is also messing things up a bit for future generations to be able to do the same. Like it's having a negative effect on our air quality, on our land, on our water, on the coral reefs, on things like that, through the biosphere breaking down, and therefore shifts in our climate, which affect then our ecosystems. So it's a big topic, and it's one of these topics too that really requires such a big shift in the way that we operate as a society, because it's really about, again, like the energy that we use, how I'm powering this computer right now, and so in that way, there aren't really very simple answers to this, which, can be frustrating for people. And I think for a lot of people that just kind of makes them want to turn off, shut down with it too. But again, it's like so understandable. And that's where I hope that community space, like the circles that I offer, can be a place to kind of renew some energy around it, talk out some of those frustrations, and therefore have renewed energy, because there are things that we can do. And, you know, I'll share some more practical ones because this might not sound very practical, but I think honestly, you know, just like even becoming more aware of how, like, what all goes into the products and the, like, I was thinking about my meal that I had earlier. You know, I like ate some chicken with some rice and like, you know, that that meal doesn't just exist on its own. You know what I mean? Like that meal doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It's like part of this larger system of things that made it possible to come to me and to come to me in this convenient way, you know? So like a lot of resources, a lot of people, you know. And so I think even just starting to develop that kind of, or even starting to play with thinking about those things is like really an awesome first step. And, you know, again, it can be overwhelming. Like I've gone, you know, I've gone through and go through my own states of overwhelm with it. It can just become very, you know, it's like everything you're doing, you're like, like everything that I'm doing is destroying the planet, you know what I mean? So we don't want to get there, even though that's totally understandable, you know? So just like a little at a time going through this thought experiment of like, well, shoot, where does my meal come from? You know, like who was involved in
the
it?
impact, how I think when you're talking about systems, right? We talk about systems and looking at everything that's impacted. It's just not, it's a whole system. Even in talking about the good and the bad, the good news, and then there's the bad news that goes with that,
That's
right?
great. That's
So,
great.
you know, even in just talking about it from that perspective, the systems, I know what we would look at different types of systems, right? What kind of systems do we need to build that will be successful? How should we change our systems to have a different impact? And, you know, we talk a lot about community, right? How do we shift an entire community? And I think that was part of what I was asking about the climate change. How do we shift the community? And as you said, it's awareness. The first step is to become aware. And then if we're aware, then we can then make the small steps to make a difference in climate change, let's just say.
Totally. Or like what, you know, what you buy, you know what I mean?
Right.
Going to the, you know, like going to the farmer's market versus like, you know, and again, you know, not everything's accessible to everyone, you know what I mean? And so that's
Right.
another, right? And then that takes us to another part of the system of where we're like, okay, well, how do we make these things more accessible to people?
Right.
But I feel you. And I just, you know, I think that again, you know, I'm excited to get into more like practical things, but like that kind of complexity that you were just talking about, like that, like the good and the bad, right? Like the reality that like, okay, our society has done so much good things for us, right? Like the fact that you and I are able to do this right now, the fact that we've made so many advancements in so many different domains,
Mhm.
and, you know, we're also at a point where we're realizing that we can do better in
Right.
some ways, right?
Mhm.
And, you know, I heard this on a podcast that I thought was really awesome of just how the pandemic really, you know, has been this moment in time where as a world, we all changed our behavior really quickly,
We did.
you know, really
We
quickly.
kind of like had to adapt, right? To what was to the pandemic. We just had to adapt. And as I look at it, I think it's how it's going to look as we move forward, right? What support systems do we need in place to support us as we move forward? And I think spiritual conversations are one of the great things that can support us during this next period, right? What kind of spiritual tools do we have? Do we have access to mental health services? Do we have access to even healing circles? Um, yeah, there's a huge shift that we're going to see happening. And the thing that I look at also is less people contact. I love to hug and I love to be around people, right? But right now, we've kind of put that like on hold because
Right.
we just can't run around hugging people as we used to
Right.
do. So the impact of that is really felt. The impact of not getting those touches and those hugs that we love can be felt. And so as we move forward, right? I don't know. I know we've done some Zooms where I could shower you with love, right? I could
Right.
shower you.
Totally. Right. Yep. Yep.
I could give you a big old hug, right?
Oh man, that's like, you know what I mean? Doesn't even compare. It doesn't even compare.
It was just like, oh, the difference. And I just say that to this new way of being. And we'll have to
Right.
come up with some new creative tools and creative ways of being to support this new way of being and to support all of the new issues that are going to come up now with
That's right.
all of this. The kids are traumatized, right? They don't know. My little niece had COVID. She's only 4 years old. And she wants to
Wow.
go to school, and they don't understand staying in the house, right?
That's
It
right.
was funny. It was like she tell mother says bedtime. She goes, "It's time to go to bed again, right?" Because I think you staying in quarantine,
Totally.
right?
For
You
like
know.
sense of time is yeah, right. Right.
Can we go somewhere now, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, everybody is just impacted by this whole COVID thing. We're gonna have to heal a lot from that. And then when we think about it, we think, wow, when though? How long will this go on? What
Yeah.
we don't even know. And if you watch the news, you will be confused.
That's right. Good. Right. It's like how they make their money. You know what I mean? It's confusing people. You know what I mean? Hyping people up, and I
Yeah, you
totally hear
think
you.
that, and you think that if you watch it, you can get to some information, right? You know, and you go on this search for information, valid information, and it's just so much you have to sift through. It's just
Well, it's
so
a full-time job to even know if what you're consuming is trustworthy, right?
exactly. And that's
It's a
when
real
the
full-time job.
meditation comes in so
That's
handy
right.
for me because the meditation says, okay, spirit guides, inner guide, help me know what to do and say
That's
because
right.
I need help right now. Sort of like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know too many things, right? And
That's
so,
right. I
and
feel you.
I like the idea of being a support at this time, being
Yeah.
creating those spaces. That's why I love what you do with the circles, creating those spaces. I love like these conversations, right? How to expand these conversations. It's once a week on Monday, but do you get groups? Do you
Right.
pull a group of people together to have these conversations, right?
Right.
What is it that we could do to continue to create a space for people to share and talk and learn and express and all of that?
That's
I didn't
great.
realize that you had done momentum.
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
that wasn't me. Yeah.
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 Oh, okay.
Yeah. But do they do group work? Or do they do stuff like that?
They do trainings around developing your professional and personal transformational trainings,
Right.
that
Right.
are really powerful.
That's awesome.
And I thought when I put your name in there, your name came up. It must have been somebody else,
Yeah,
right?
maybe someone else. My
With your
twin, you know.
friend. the same name, right?
But surprise, yeah.
Well, why didn't I know that she did momentum? And then
No, yeah, you would know that. I would tell
I
you that.
thought I would
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. Well, yo, but what I will say, I really, yeah, just this space. Like, how do we keep creating supportive space for people? How do we create space where, like, this transformation, talking about transformation, where we can, you know, because I'm of the mind and of the heart and of the belief that, you know, there is a deeper purpose to all of this, right?
Definitely.
There's a deeper purpose to all of this, and um, you know, something that I found really key, and just also linking back to what you were talking about in terms of like coming into one's own inner guidance, you know, connecting with your own inner wisdom to figure out your own truth, because all the information out there is so confusing. The world is really confusing. The world is in a state of disarray and disorientation. So how do we connect with our deeper truth? How do we make sense of what's going on through connecting with our deeper truth? And I think these kind of supportive community spaces can really do that, you know. And in particular, you know, I think there's a lot out there already where, with people telling you what to think. You know what I mean? People telling you what to think, people telling you what to do, and that's all well and good sometimes. You know, sometimes we need that. But something very intentional that I do in my circle space is that there's no unsolicited advice. There's no, like, after someone's done sharing and telling their story, you know, it's not about debating the person. It's not about, you know, talking back to them. It's not about even like asking questions or probing. You know, it's really about this very sacred experience of just holding loving space for each other. You know, holding living space.
I like the storytelling approach
Mm.
too, because it also gives a framework for communicating your feelings if you tell it to a story, right?
Right,
how,
right.
how do you and the idea when you said storytelling, I like that idea of an approach,
Mm.
to sharing what you're feeling through telling a story. And I think I will work with that. That's interesting, because what just came to mind, we talk about things in your spiritual toolkit. I just thought storytelling could be a very, very, very nice spiritual practice.
Right.
Use that, because as we talked about the different types of spiritual practice, remember, art, drawing, and all that. I just thought of storytelling as a way of getting clarity, connecting with your inner guide through these stories that you tell. Yeah, I like that idea of using storytelling. And as
Mm.
I was in one of your groups, I thought it was a really great way for everybody spoke. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? It was
right,
like you
right,
created the space and gave the structure where each person was willing to share.
right.
Um, as a part of We Heal All, what is the message that you will want to get out to folks?
Yeah, yeah. The message that I feel really called to share, and that, you know, it's the message and flow of words that just keep coming through me and keep coming through my heart, and that just keep knocking at my door. Um, just the immense opportunity we have right now for collective healing, for this really unique point in time. And of course, all times throughout history are unique in their own beautiful, blessed way, but that this point in time in particular, with our interconnectedness, with our ability to connect and communicate and just grow our awareness. I'm getting chills right now on my legs. Connect our awareness and become more aware about our world and ourselves, that it makes sense that century-old wounds are coming through. It makes sense that overwhelm and just anxiety and fear and uncertainty and deep pain and sadness and all these things, it really makes sense that these feelings are coming through for us as communities, as groups of people, and as individuals, you know. And in this way, as scary and confusing and daunting as it can be to be present with such suffering, there's really, I so deeply, humbly believe, real opportunity. Have so many tools available to us. We have shows like your own that are connecting folks with these tools. We have community spaces and the ability, even though, you know, we're all in our communities shifting in certain ways, but we just have these tools available to us to really be able to just take little steps to healing and transmuting these things. And you know, just see, you know, like it's, you know what I mean? It's that potential. It's that,
that feeling that the hope, that feeling that, yeah, we will get through this, right? And that's what I feel, that there are opportunities there for us to get through this. Lots of opportunities, right? And I feel hopeful, right? I feel one of the things I like to do is support people in feeling that same way and finding a little bit of joy. I know it's hard. I know there's sadness, and it's not that we cannot acknowledge all of that, but find a little joy. There's a way, you know, to try to break through, find a little bit of joy. And a part of that too is how mental health, how stable are you? All of it. It's complex, as we said, about all these systems, right?
That's right. But it is possible, you know, like
Yeah,
it is possible.
it's possible.
You know, it is possible. And like, if you can find, you know, and it's so different for every single person. And that's like the cool point where we're at too, of where we're understanding that more and more. There's no one size fits all. You know, we got to find what works for us in this moment and realize that that might not work 2 moments from now. But like, you know what I mean? It's that awareness thing too, right? Being present, continuing to come to the present and just notice what we notice and care for ourselves in whatever ways we need. So I mean, I feel super blessed to get to learn from you and from just all the different people out there in this world that, you know, are just sharing their gifts, speaking. And again, that's another reason why I love to come together in community, because we get to learn from each other in this way.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And that's what I was saying too. A part of it is like, now I'm going to ask you to talk about your top 3 spiritual go-tos in your spiritual toolkit. And in sharing them, you know, we get to inspire others, let people know these are the things that I use that are my go-tos. And I found that each person have some very interesting top 3 spiritual tools in their toolkit. And as we said, we just have so many things that we do. And sometimes we don't even recognize them as spiritual tools, right?
Right. Totally.
Just do certain things and then they make us feel better, right? And that could be, wow, yeah, that really supported me. And it could be a tool, what that supports us in finding our peace, that supports us in becoming calm and settled. So many things. So
Yeah.
now, yeah. I gave you a moment. I told you, she's like,
yeah, exactly. Well, you gave me a second to kind of think through. Yeah, because I felt it too. I feel like you were saying. I was like, what are my top three? Well, what something that I've gotten into the habit of that I really like. It's first thing in the morning when I wake up, I go into meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a spot in my house that I just I've got my altar, I've got my sacred things on there, and each morning's a little bit different. Sometimes I'll read from the Bible, sometimes I'll just kind of breathe and notice my breath, or breathe into my heart space. It'll be different every day, but I like to do that before even like checking my phone, or before even like really getting my active mind going, like while I'm still in that kind of sleep like state. And then it helps me kind of start my day off on a nice, even, peaceful playing field. So that's the first one that I'd say, is that just like starting off early in the morning. I was dancing before our conversation, just dancing and getting into my body. And that really felt good, because as a sensitive person, like energy, I feel it in my body, and that can sometimes get overwhelming, right? Or that can sometimes get me in a weird space. And so just kind of like moving my body and letting myself go free. And then, like you were saying, stories, I love to write. I love to just kind of free flow, pen to paper, write, and just like it doesn't even need to make sense. It doesn't need to have a beginning, middle, end, you know what I mean? Just kind of seeing what comes through, and just allowing it to be.
Have you found the difference between pen to paper as opposed to clicking on the computer to the screen? I don't know what to call that.
Totally. Yeah, totally. The clickety clack of the computer. Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Because
totally.
I promise you, I was writing this book, and I was writing, and now I can't read it, right? And I was saying I was so free flowing in the writing, right? That it's kind of hard to read right now, right? So it was interesting. Then I'm now working with writing like this, so that on the computer, so that won't be the issue again.
Oh, you mean like you couldn't read your handwriting when you went back? Is that it? Yeah, I got you. Yeah, totally. I notice sometimes, like, it's a different flow for me, like writing with a pen, using my hand, versus sometimes I like being on the computer, because then like my fingers can work faster than if writing, so it can kind of keep up with my thoughts a little bit better. But I find that there's like rootsier about using a pen and paper, like there's something that feels like more connected at like a bone knowing level, like just like a deeper.
I decided to journal writing, which is free flowing prompt writing, because I love pen to paper.
Yeah.
But when I'm writing this book and I'm in a zone, right, I need to
be able to go read it later. Yeah. It's hilarious.
I was like, oh my God, I must have been in a zone, right? Yeah, when you talk about writing, I thought about that, and I am getting more into writing, right? One of the phrases that, as I was reading everything, I noticed that you say, we are all healers.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a bit, of the concept that we are all healers?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, yeah, I love that you're bringing that in here. I just believe it. I just believe it. I mean, we all have a capacity to heal. No, we're all able to heal. We all have that potential, and so in that way, we're all healers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's big work to heal. You know, it's not a small thing to do. It's you know, confronting that trauma that got pushed away, right?
And bringing it to the forefront,
Bring it
right?
to the forefront and processing it, like allowing it to unfold and be seen and felt, you know, allowing that emotional energy to be refelt. And so it's really takes a lot of strength and a lot of bravery to do it.
Okay.
And
you
you
know,
know,
it's interesting because I think about during this past year with all of the racism and all the killings, a lot of the deep wounds were exposed, right? Based on all the injustice that's gone on. So I really felt a lot this year. And it was that whole idea of pushing it to the side. I pushed it to the side so much that I really appreciated feeling it, you know, just crying about it, just feeling it, just being with all the hurt and all the wounds. And that's a way of healing all of it rather than just pushing it away. Be with it and then get it to a place where you're not responding from it. That's the part, right?
Right.
Because we're responding from wounds and we don't want to respond from that place, you know, and just being aware of that, I think, can be very, very important. And I like the idea that we are all healers. We can heal ourselves. We can heal the world. We can support the healing of our friends. We can just support healing for everyone.
Healing of our planet.
Planet. We heal for all. I love
we heal for all. It's big work. It's big work. And I so deeply believe that our souls chose to be here during this time. And, you know, we got big work to do and we're all doing it. It's really beautiful. We're all doing it. Yeah.
So I'm so excited that you were able to join me tonight as my first guest in 2021. We got some good 2021 plans.
I so appreciate me. It's just such an honor, and I mean, any opportunity to just hang with you for an hour, please. You know.
Thank you so much, and I will be in touch with you, and we'll keep healing and serving and helping people.
That's right.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Granada.
All right. Bye. Hi, so it's Reverend G, and thank you for joining me tonight with my special guest. I'm here every Monday night at 8 p.m., from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on WEMS Radio. And I am here to support you in creating your spiritual toolkit to bring you different perspectives on spirituality. My goal is to have you find that bit of joy in your life. Live your best life with grace and ease. I'm Reverend Granetta Mason, aka Reverend G. You can find me on Facebook as Rev Granetta. That's Instagram is Rev Granetta. On Facebook is Reverend Granetta Briggs Mason, and on YouTube. So today I would like to leave you with a 2021 message. The 2021 message is to live your best life. Find some joy. That's going to be my message throughout the year. Find a bit of joy no matter what you're going through. I will see you next week here on WEMS Radio. Have a great week.
We talking across the crib, whatever you feel, to show you how to live. 'Cause baby, you the one that I'm trying to have fun, yeah. I hope you're ready for the night. Come on, let's take a ride, yeah.